WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany. This video is a little bit different. It's called Whisky Tourism in Germany. Now, I was at a whiskey fair. I actually have a booth and I was selling whiskey by the dram and by the bottle, which is legal over here in Germany. And this weekend, there was a couple that came to me, Thomas and Nicole, and they said, "Oh, yeah, thank you. We're here today on the Sunday of the Whiskey Fair." It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Whiskey Spring in Schwetzingen, beautiful, beautiful city. And they just arrived from Nuremberg, where the village, the biggest whiskey fair in Germany, was actually also happening on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the same weekend. And so they made a road trip. So Friday, they drove down there. They actually had a wonderful day together. Saturday, they went to the whiskey fair. They had a great time. Sunday morning, it's just 2.5 hours away. They drove over to Schwetzingen. We're there for 6 hours, did that, talked to the different vendors, talked to the different people there, tried some different whiskeys. They spent the night, and the next morning, on Monday, they had the day off. We do have that sometimes over here as well, bank holidays and so on. And they were going to go to a spa and go to the sauna and have a little bit of wellness. And they had a wonderful couples weekend. And I just was like, wow, that's fantastic. First of all, wife and husband doing it together. And second of all, just this little bit of a trip and to enjoy the time together with one of their favorite hobbies, whiskey. Just 2 weeks before that, I was up in Hamburg and another couple was there, Mario and Silke. And they said, "Hey, Jason, we're here for 5 hours at the Whiskey Fair." It was Saturday. We arrived Friday before that. We visited a musical. Today we're here. This evening we're going to do some fine dining. We're going to actually stay here until Sunday, go to the fish market, be a tourist in Hamburg. And that was the reason we're here. They live in the middle of Germany by the Harz Mountains. There is not a single whiskey fair within a 2.5 hour driving distance of them. So they drove the 3 hours up to Hamburg and they made a weekend of it. And I was like, oh, that's fabulous. And I really started thinking about all the different things you can do in Germany with whiskey tourism. Now, this is not just relevant for whiskey. If you live in Ireland, it's the same. If you live in the UK, that's the same. England has so many distilleries, whiskey distilleries. If you're in the States, if you're in France, if you're in Australia, almost everywhere in the world they're producing whiskeys. And there's probably within a driving distance of you a whiskey distillery. Now, if it's the Australian outback driving distance, that'd be 6 hours. If you're in the rural valley of Germany, that's like anything over 30 minutes is a long way away. But there is actually a distillery, for at least my home, 8 minutes in one direction and 20 minutes in the other direction. And so I have whiskey distilleries very, very close to where I live. And maybe you do too. Why haven't you visited them? Or if you have, what's your experience of visiting local distilleries? You don't have to go to Kentucky and do the Bourbon Trail. Of course you can. I've done many, many of the distilleries there. I did part of the Tennessee Whiskey Trail in August of 2024. It's a wonderful experience. Now, I actually give at one of those distilleries only 8 minutes from my home tastings once a month. And we've actually had people drive 3 to 4 hours to participate in that tasting, that whiskey tasting, take a hotel for the night because you drank so much. You could either walk to the hotel or have a taxi drive you there and drive home the next day. That's whiskey tourism as well. We have basically 3 different whiskey museums in Germany at the moment. There are probably more. And people actually flock to these whiskey museums, meccas of whiskey with these old bottles that you can see. There's one in northern Germany, there's one in Bavaria, there's one actually in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia in the west. You can go to a whiskey museum, and these people are so passionate about their hobby that they started actually exhibiting whiskey products. And that's also something that I'm sure many other places in the world have as well. Now, not just that, but over here in Germany, we have festivals and we have whiskey fairs. So one of my favorite places to go is actually, it's called the Festival of German Whiskies. So it goes from one distillery to the next every year someplace else. So you get to know, you get to be at a different location, a different German distillery. We have, last year I actually exhibited at over 15 different whiskey fairs. Maybe you've heard of Whisky Live Dublin or Whisky Live Paris or Whisky Live New York. And we have other local whiskey fairs. And you can go visit them. And there's actually people who've done wonderful videos online of how to prepare for the first time to go to a whiskey fair. Over here in Germany, we are not allowed to pay one price, drink all you can. But actually you pay an entrance fee, you get a glass, and then you pay per dram. And so you're very selective on what you actually drink. And you always drink a lot of water in between. Now, not even that, you can also just go on a normal trip someplace and then visit a whiskey bar. Over here in Germany, every big city has an excellent, or at least very good, whiskey bar. If you're in Berlin, if you're in Hamburg, if you're in Cologne, if you're actually in Stuttgart, if you're in Munich, if you're in Frankfurt, there are excellent, excellent whiskey bars in all of those locations. Just ask Google whiskey bar and that city, and it'll actually show you them with the reviews and the ranking. I went to TripAdvisor and found out the best distilleries in Germany, and it's just like, wow, I would not have had that same ranking. Now, number one, of course, I think I would have had, and that is St. Kilian. That's by Frankfurt, yes. Sleers in Bavaria, yes. But number three, it's like, wait a second, I don't even know that distillery. Oh, it's a museum for whiskey. Ah, okay. And then there's another one where it's like, okay, it's the distillery Wild, and they're fairly new, and I haven't visited them yet. And there's a lot of other tiny whiskey distilleries where I'm going, I have to go there. It's on my list. It's something I want to do one day. And since I spend a lot of my time and some of my money actually dealing with whiskey, I thought I would just ask you the question, what plans do you have to actually integrate your hobby, whiskey? It could be bourbon, it could be rye, it could be Irish whiskey, it could be Scotch. It could actually be world whiskeys. It could be any type of whiskey. How are you going to integrate that this year, 2025, into your touristic plans? So I will be in the States again twice this year, and both times at different parts of America, once on the East Coast, once by Texas, and I'm planning to visit at least a few distilleries along the way. I'm planning to go to liquor stores and buy some bottles, put it in my suitcase, and bring it back over to Germany so I can share that with friends, products that we just can't get here. And I also plan to be at Whisky Live Dublin again. I'm going to fly over to Dublin from Germany and do my recording and interview a lot of the exhibitors there. I do a lot with whiskey. I publish a video in English almost every second day here, and therefore I have a lot to do with whiskey, and yet I have so much more to learn. And I ask you, and I ask myself, wow, where should I focus on next? What is the thing I would like to do? And one of my favorite check marks of my bucket list I have is I would love to visit Japan one day. And I was thinking about that, and I know exactly what I would do. I would visit 8 different distilleries all over Japan and try to soak in as much culture as possible while doing so in those different regions, in those different places. Bucket list. Let's see if I get it done in the next 10 years or not. Thank you very much for watching. Write down in the comments what are your plans for whiskey and tourism this year. Have you experienced Germany's whiskey scene at all? And have you ever visited a local distillery close by, and what was your impression and what was your experience there? What can you recommend? Thank you very much that we can actually learn from you. WhiskyJason here, totally different than usual. Whiskey from the viewpoint of an American. Bye-bye.